Echo level 1 to level 4. Hi everybody. We have a couple minutes, just kind of doing a little testing here. Hi Ash. I think there's only, I have three, let's see, there's 3 people that are waiting to get in. Okay. Boo Boo might be in the back here, so for those of you who like cats, Boo Boo said he wanted to join the debate, so. And I guess everything he wants goes in this house, so. Okay. I need to check in with Chad Maxing to see if he is getting this live stream. Make sure, I think I have a request. I'll let Chad know. Hold on. Hi, Hari. Is it morning over where you're at in your part of the world? It's 6:15 or 6:18 in the standard Pacific time zone. I will let him know. Okay, it looks like my debate opponent is ready. So we're just waiting on him to request to join. Can everybody hear me? Yeah? I hope everyone can hear me. Oh, okay. All right, so Chadlet Maxing is going to make an announcement, and then it's going to try to figure out the invite. So, thanks, Ash. Yeah, he's going to run a story real quick. Technically, the debate starts at 6:30, but we just wanted to make sure we afforded enough to those of you who can't get in as late to join a little early, but also any technical issues. We wanted to just make sure that we wouldn't run into any during the live debate. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, fun fact, I have a ring light behind me, if y'all didn't see it. My cat is also behind me. He's gonna take over the debate. Just watch. I haven't used a ring light in quite some time, and so I'm just kind of a little bit nervous. It's funny because it's like when the ring light's not on, you don't feel nervous, but when it's, I don't know what it is. It's like the ring light it reminds me of like my recent past, doing online work So, anyway, I think we figured out how to make the live work. So, probably going to start in 5 minutes. I do have another question though. Y'all said you could hear me, but can you hear any background music or anything like that? Bye, Hari. Yeah, the debate's supposed to be like an hour. I don't think it's going to be that long. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Ash. Oh, that's good. Good to know it's not overwhelming. Whew. I need to move this a little bit. I know. Mama's gonna debate. I know. I know, baby. I know. I can't find it either. I can't seem to find it. Oh, here it is. Never mind. Oh, there we go. Oh, we finally got the story up. That's great. There we are. Okay, great. Great. Chadlet Maxing has finally joined the live chat, and now if Chadlet Maxing can send me a request to join, let me do this here.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hello!
Hi. I'm gonna wipe this thing. All right.
All right, Echo, stop. Good to have you here.
Uh-huh.
How's
Okay, so
this?
my head's getting cut off. Let's
Yeah,
see.
we need to make some adjustments here. Let's make some adjustments on that. Okay.
There. I'm in a good spot.
Yeah, you comfy?
Mm-hmm.
I have three computer screens on my laptop, and then I have the live feed cell phone, and then I have a fourth cell phone where I can actually read some of the data that I have downloaded. So, uh,
Great. Wow.
yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun this evening.
Looks like we have a third person here. Do both of us count as people that are watching or
Yeah,
okay, so we got
yeah,
one person. Hi, one person. Um, thanks for joining.
yeah. Thank
So
you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate everybody participating and enjoying our discussion. And I know that we titled it as a debate, but really what we're having is more of a discussion and kind of getting acquainted with each other on our backstories and acquainting everyone with how we arrived at where we are. And we're going to learn a lot today. I think we're going to learn a lot.
So this person asked a question. They said, "Will this be on YouTube too, or no?" So you said you were
Yes,
going to re-upload it on your channel, which I'll share on my community post once it's ready.
yes. It's going to be shared on Chadlet Maxing's community post as well as our YouTubes. I think I'm going to probably run the some of it might have to get chopped down a little bit, but the meat and potatoes and the core of it, I'm gonna run it past my editor. I have a video editor, and of course, we're not gonna leave any of the debate. We're gonna leave all of the debate in there, but we just want to make sure. that it's properly uploaded. So I'm going to have my editor upload it to the YouTube, and then there's going to be numerous posts throughout the next week. So you'll be able to see it and rewatch it.
Yep. So even if barely anybody watches or watches it live, it doesn't matter because it'll be up. Um, but thank you to those who do. Um, so we're supposed to start at 6:30. So there are people who like probably are going to join at 6:30. So maybe we shouldn't like start the actual thing until then. What do you think?
Yeah, we're going to wait. And like I was telling some of the folks earlier, is that we're going to let them trickle in. And
Hmm.
once we reach a critical mass, I think then we're going to go ahead and enter the discussion and let the game begin.
Yeah. So I have OCD, so I am probably going to be touching my hair a lot and touching my face. And yeah, I'm not on crack. So
Okay. Well, I think I could say this with sure confidence that you're in a safe space here to touch yourself however you need, however you need to
okay.
be able to function in this debate. So yeah,
Yeah.
no judgment here.
Yeah.
I touch my hair
So
a lot as well. I do a lot of this and a lot of like millennial side part thing as I'm also balding.
is that
So
what millennials
yeah,
do?
it's a
I guess
side part. Yeah, it's a millennial thing. Hmm.
I guess that's where my millennial comes in. Because I do that.
Are you a cuspy? I feel like you're a cuspy. You're like
Um,
not quite
we
Gen Z,
I
not quite.
call it Zillennial
Okay.
because that's what the subreddit is, Zillennial. And I visit it a lot because I can't relate with anybody.
Yeah.
Hey, so it just went down to one. Yet I thought you said that we both counted as the two people that are in it because it just went down to one and then back
What'll
up to two.
happen is I think there's people that are going to come enter and then leave out at different points in time. But the main thing is that once we get the debate uploaded on YouTube, people will be able to revisit it and we'll have all that viewership. But I think what's happening is that some folks are leaving the debate, some folks are coming back into it, probably
Yeah,
turning.
but
Yeah.
I thought that when it said two, that was talking about us two.
Oh, no, no, no. That's talking
Okay.
about the two people watching.
So there are two people watching. I thought those two
Yeah.
were us.
Yeah,
Okay.
no. There's two people watching, and then that count will increase as we get packed. Edge past 6:30. We're going to see a lot more folks
Yeah,
come in.
I've done a bunch of these. I've never put on a live stream myself because I'm intimidated by it and I don't have a lot of time. But I've been on a bunch of them and like I swear like the most viewers that anyone has ever had at once is like 60 that I've been on. And that's it. Like every live stream I've been on has been really really um low, unfortunately. So I
Okay.
don't expect anything amazing.
Okay. Well, here's what I will say. One of my ex-girlfriends canceled a hangout to be a part of this live stream to join. So I'm actually now the pressure's on. I'm actually feeling the pressure because she's gonna be watching this at 6:30. So
Oh,
she basically passed on a hangout to watch this live debate, and it's nice having an ex actually watch the debate. But yeah, it'll be interesting, and I want to, like I said, I want to keep this fun and entertaining, and yeah, it's not just going to be a bunch of stats. I think there's a lot to be said for the way the social paradigm has shifted when it comes to dating and relationships. We're in interesting times.
hmm, yeah,
Hmm.
shitty.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
yeah. What
Well, it looks
time is?
like it's 6:30.
Okay.
So without further ado, I think we're good to start the debate. And for those that are asking to join, I have to double check and make sure I'm looking, but I don't think I see any more join requests. So if I start to see them, then I'll let them in.
And
Anyway,
wait, you have to by request to join. Do you mean like they're actually going to appear with video?
No, they'll just appear in my like queue. There's like a queue, kind of like when you do a Zoom video, and then they'll ask to join, and I just hit yes, and
Oh,
they can
I
join.
thought anyone could watch. It
Anyone
doesn't
should
work
be able
that
to
way?
watch if they're a friend. Yeah.
If they're a friend. Okay.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
hopefully that barrier um doesn't make people not want to stay or watch.
Yeah. Well, my Instagram is public now, so
Yeah,
folks can feel more than welcome to follow and add me. So, yeah, without further ado, are we ready to start the debate?
sure.
Cool. All right. So, there were some subjects I think we kind of talked about last week and the week before. You and I getting acquainted was quite the experience. I mean, it was kind of interesting how we crossed each other's paths online. I actually saw one of your videos about height maxing and or the height pill as it is. And so
Yeah.
I want to make sure I use the right nomenclature, the height pill. And also there was, I think it was an Instagram reel about short men and tall women, which it really drew me in because I have definitely dated my share of tall women. In fact, probably arguably the most of the women I've dated are much taller than me. And it's mostly by coincidence, but I do
Lucky
find that
you.
yeah, I thought it was interesting, and then uh, getting acquainted with you and chatting and hearing some of your experiences made me think, wow, there's just a lot more here than I thought. Um, so, keeping everything within context, I guess the first point that we agreed to discuss is to what extent does identity shape your dating experience, and how does this relate to the male loneliness epidemic?
Okay, can you define identity?
So the way I would define identity is basically how you see yourself and how you view yourself in the way that you move through the world. So your identity to someone else might not be the same identity to yourself, but you ultimately get to decide how you identify and whether or not that's true.
So gender
Regardless,
identity, it includes gender identity, but it's not exclusive to that,
yeah,
right?
sure.
Okay. Yeah, because I definitely identify as male. Um, as much as I would love to have been born a woman, um, I wouldn't take your route. I don't have gender identity, whatever the term is. Um, but like, I do identify differently. I identify as a guy who likes unconventional women, like a guy who defies gender roles. So I identify as a stunted short guy who wants to be towered over and feel submissive and cede control and have a very tall, powerful woman like I don't know slap me around and love me, but also be rough with me and be powerful and dominant. And I don't want I don't I identify as a submissive small man, not as a wannabe macho alpha male like I used to be. And so that affects the way I move through the world in the sense of what kind of women that I'm interested in. But the problem is that the majority of women, like the vast majority, like 99%, it seems, are all submissive. Even if their body doesn't match the physical, like, like if they are a tall, powerful, broad-shouldered, muscular, athletic female, and they look like someone who would be really like perfect as a dominant woman, and yet they want to be dominated, and they almost exclusively want to be dominated by a tall guy. But if they do like short guys, it seems like the majority of the time they want a short guy who will dominate them. And it's really disappointing. And I'm sorry for rambling, but I've had a lot of bad experiences with this over the years. Um, does that kind of fit in with what you're asking about?
It does. And I completely can relate because, yeah, I've had a lot of bad experiences too. And they might not be the same, but it doesn't invalidate the fact that we've both had some pretty severe treatment when it comes to our relationship with women, right? And in different ways. And specifically, like the people that we're attracted to, and then as opposed to how they treat us if they are attracted to us and what those expectations are. And it kind of leads into my other point about how um, a lot of people develop these sort of like projections that they place on people based on how they look or how they perceive
Yeah.
their identity. And that kind of ties into my point about the patriarchy, which I've said this before the debate. I said when we discuss the patriarchy, I wanted to discuss the relationship to the inversion of feminism and fifth wave feminism and how that relates to dating. And
What do you mean
so
inversion?
well, I'm going to get to that in a second.
Okay.
So the idea is that the patriarchy, in my opinion, is as harmful to men as it is to women, but in different ways. And a lot of men don't realize how harmful the patriarchy actually is, because we might not look at like the way women move through the world and their experiences the same way because we haven't actually lived as a woman in that context, and so it's harder to see someone else's view when you haven't walked in their shoes. But also, it's sometimes hard to see that like some systems that appear to be beneficent to one group actually harm all the groups, and patriarchy is no stranger to that. And I think it does harm a lot of men that tend to be shorter, that tend to be what let's just say some women deem as less desirable or less worthy of love or less worthy of um, decency. That's a real phenomenon, and so I would never invalidate that or disagree with you. In fact,
I've
i
got a
i
hot take. But I just wanted to, sorry to interrupt. I don't want to forget. Um, so I feel like short guys understand in many ways like more what it's like to be a woman than than average men do, or um, tall guys, because we physically fit a phenotype more of what a woman is physically, like our bodies. So in the world, like we're smaller, more petite. Like a lot of guys hate when I say this, but I believe, and I've seen evidence that in general, on average, shorter men are weaker. Sorry, especially the case for me. And so we're more vulnerable. We're viewed as more vulnerable. We're viewed as easy targets. We're, harassed, seen as somebody like criminals see us as an easy target. We're bullied more. And in a lot of ways, that's even worse than with women because a short woman is less likely to be actually bullied, like especially physically, like in school or whatever, because they fit in to the stereotype of what a woman is supposed to look like. Um, but at the same time, if a guy is short and like cute, like they have a cute kind of face, they are gonna be like also targeted a lot by gay men, for harassment, like sexual harassment, being you know what I mean? Like even physically harassed, and I've experienced that a lot myself. So it's like, um, I don't fully know what it's like to be a woman, but I know better than most guys. I feel like.
Yeah, neither do I don't know what it feels like to be a woman, but I know what it feels like to be a transgender person or a transgender identifying woman. And I understand that distinction matters to a lot of people and how people choose to identify. And again, no one can tell you how you get to identify yourself. Only you can tell yourself that. But as far as the experience of being a shorter male born person, yes, you're correct. There are some aspects that, we're not shielded from, certainly when it comes to safety and certain things like that, like, people being more powerful than you and stronger than you. and those concerns are real and valid. But it doesn't invalidate the lived experiences that women face. And you talked about how shorter guys get bullied a lot, but I know for a fact when it comes down to it, there's women, there's groups of women in certain demographics that tend to get bullied more. Women of color experience bullying a lot more. In fact, there's stats that back that up when it comes to like gender statistics. If you ever took a gender studies class in your undergrad, it's been proven they tend to get bullied a lot more, not just in school but in the workplace. When it comes to the dating arena and other places, there's also another thing that a lot of people don't seem to see is that yes, short men get the brunt of the hatred when it comes to the unprovoked hatred, but there are women that have to cope with uh, weight issues, right, and being bullied over their weight
Yeah,
and
that's
weight
something you can
fluctuations.
change. I don't really have much sympathy for that, especially when compared with height. And there are so many guys that like fat girls. You know, I used to be one of them. In fact, I still like women that if they have a lot of weight, like down here, you know what I mean? I still have an appreciation for that. But you mentioned gender studies. I wish they would do height studies. But you said that they get bullied. Women of color get bullied more, and I believe you, but not like only in certain places. Like, let's say we're talking about Georgia or Alabama or Mississippi, where you go to a high school and it's like 90% people of color. I've read a lot of stories from young white people, women, whatever, that's experienced relentless targeting and bullying and physical abuse from their, classmates, their non-white classmates, and they literally are saying like it's practically a race-based hate crime because they're actually physically being beat up because of their race. So I mean, like, I guess it kind of depends on what part of the states or the world you're in, right?
Yeah, I think context matters, and there's certainly been a lot of white women that face bullying, and not just from other women, but from men as well, and from maybe even from women of color in certain circumstances, depending on what part of the country they live in and what the demographics look like, right? If you're the only white kid in a school and you're getting picked on for that, well, it becomes no surprise if you happen to be also a woman, you're also getting picked on. None of those things are surprising, and none of those things would I disagree with. I think it's just, again, context is important, and when it comes down to it, I'm simply saying that while it is true that short men do receive, I think, in a lot of ways, a premium. It's like, when it comes to dating, short men have to pay this sort of unspoken premium, right? When we step up to the plate and we say like, "Hey, I'd like to come and meet you," whatever, and then she asks you like, "Well, what's your height?" Or she asks you, or is the height that you listed in the dating profile actually your actual height? And then if you respond to that and you say, "Oh, yes, it is," but there's no, when it comes down to it, there's no field where you can put like your weight, right? But there's been studies actually now where dating app data and these like dating app projectors are talking about, well, we're going to start making a field where men can view women's weight, like their weight range in the on these
Personally,
dating apps.
I don't really need that. I could just go based off the pictures, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they can just lie anyway. Like I don't personally I don't care. I don't think that's necessary. I like the height thing because I want to know their height because I want a tall woman. Um, but of course they make you pay to filter out women or anybody under a certain height now. So it's like on Bumble at least you got to pay like $20 a month to do that, and it's annoying. But it's like around where I live, it's like 99% of women are under 5'8". So it's a lot of swiping, and I almost never match with anybody. It says I've got 25 likes, but I never encounter any of them. And but yeah, you were talking about bullying and stuff like that. Tall women, yeah, they experience bullying. I've seen plenty of stories about it, but I've talked about that in my videos. Another thing you said about short men having to pay a premium, I talked a lot about that in the video about Nancy Mulkey. You know Nancy Mulkey?
You mentioned her video briefly. If you could elaborate, though, for the audience, I'd
Yeah,
appreciate that. Yeah.
she's like almost the same age as me. She's like 1 year younger. I think she's 28 or something. But she was on My Giant Life back in 2015, and she's 6'10", and she became a basketball player, and she got famous on that show. She grew up in a mansion, like most tall women that I've noticed, grew up very wealthy because there's a lot of generational um, privilege and advantage that gets passed on and compounded over the generations. And yes, she got made fun of and stuff, but the reality is that like when you tower over everyone like that and look down on them, like the people that are bullying you, they're going to be taking a big risk, like looking up, ha ha ha, you're so tall. Meanwhile, they're wondering if they're going to get slapped around by this person. So there's a lot of disincentive to bully someone like that. And I do believe that if they were a short man, it would be more common because people feel that there's less risk to, they like to take advantage of somebody that is puny and inferior and that they feel is no threat. Because a tall woman is absolutely a threat to a petite woman. And it seems like it's other women that are bullying these tall women the most. Now, if it's a man making fun of them, that's a bit of a different story. That's very hurtful, and that sucks. But I feel like the reason a man would make fun of a tall woman is because she makes him feel emasculated and insecure. And because I've been there, but I've never made fun of a tall woman before. But I totally understand the mindset of a man doing that. But you got to realize if you're a tall woman and you're getting made fun of by a man, they're just jealous. You know, the other
Yeah.
women, they're not jealous, but you can beat them up if you want to. Of course, you'll get in trouble, but still, you could just intimidate them and be like, yeah, you better watch out, something like that. So there's a
So
lot more confidence involved when you are towering over people.
I agree. And I guess my question to you then, to clarify, is it a mismatch in the attraction that you have for tall women and their attraction to you? Or is it a mismatch in the expectations as a society that women tend to hold towards short men as opposed to men of average height or taller?
Well, I've noticed that it's like anytime I'm online and I see a woman claiming that she is open to shorter men or she likes them, it's almost always them saying like, "Oh, I just care more about personality." It's not like, "Oh, I'm actually more physically attracted to a short guy," like it is for me with tall women, which I wish when I was 19 and I snapped and became this way and started like wishing I was shorter, liking being small, wanting to be with a tall, powerful woman, I thought there must be women out there that had a similar, like parallel experience to me that just kind of snapped and started to like the opposite of what women conventionally like. Because if I went through this, then at least some of them must have gone through that. Little did I come to realize that I think that the amount of anguish and mental suffering that I went through that drove me to this point is something that just women in general just don't experience, because like you have to go through some serious hell in your brain of insane levels of insecurity and inferiority complex to get to that point where you you become something unnatural. And the reality is that women like they don't reach that level because they always seem to have options. Like even ones that are really like even super tall women, obviously they got millions of guys like me that are interested in being with them. Even women that aren't that attractive, they've got guys that are like saying, "Oh, you're my looks match." But with hypergamy, they see all these options they have, and it makes them feel like, okay, I'm not totally a lost cause. And as a result, they never reach that point of falling over the cliff like I do. And one of the things that confirmed that for me was when I was 19 and 20, I went on this website called FetLife. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Yeah, so yeah, it's this website for like alternative people that are, sexually deviant. And there's a lot of BDSM stuff on there, and that's the kind of person I am. Like, I'm on the S side, as if you're calling it submissive, And I was looking for a dominant woman, and I looked and looked and looked, and I scoured the website, and I did find 20 or 30 women like that were like over 5'10", that claimed to be dominant. And after doing a lot of digging and personal DMs and all this stuff, I found that like basically every single one of them either charged for services, or they had like 50 submissives that you would have to share them with. They basically were running a harem. They wanted, most of them were also doing findom. You know findom?
I'm
So
familiar.
they're wanting to exploit the desire of submissive men who want to give them money, and it seems like the majority of these women, they just want to take advantage of the money aspect, and they're not interested at all in the actual like physical intimacy and excitement of that. And it was really, really depressing, and I fell into a very deep depression, and I became very, very jaded and cynical about the whole thing after that, and I kind of just stopped trying to find a girlfriend. I became very angry at women around the age of 20 or 21 as a result of my disappointment, because I thought this was going to open a whole new world of options for me. Like, of course there'll be tall women that are like me, that like the opposite, only to find that the only ones that do are just financially exploiting us. I'm still open to the possibility that they're out there, but either that or they're just using it as a social media thing to just like get views off of, you know?
I do, and I wonder, when you mentioned this belief that there's just not any submissive women, or there aren't. If they are, they're very rare.
You mean dominant
Or
women?
excuse me, submissive seeking women, meaning they're seeking men that are
Yeah.
submissive, or AMAB people that are submissive. And I agree, there aren't as many. However, they are. They say there's a lid for every pot. You've heard that. It's not just a cliche. It's true. It just
I
might
hope
take a
so.
lot longer to find your pot sometimes. And that's,
That's why I need to get famous.
right. And I think even more so when you are looking for someone, I catch myself doing this all the time, is we all do a little bit of projection, right? And one of the questions I had for you about your dating when it comes to tall women is, do you feel you may be perhaps like projecting these traits onto taller women in a sense? Because, like, for instance, I've dated people that were more dominant than I was, and it was rare, but when I did, the women that I dated that were more dominant than me, they weren't taller than me in some cases. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like you might find one trait in one person that they can display, and then it might not manifest in the way that you always imagined it in your fantasy or
Yeah.
whatever, but they
It's
can
a
still have it.
frustrating problem. It's a frustrating problem. I've been like this for 10 years now, and I've experienced a lot of things since then, and I've learned that, yeah, I don't project things on them anymore, because I've seen the opposite too many times. It's to the point where I expect the opposite now. Like, I expect to meet a tall woman and have her to tell me, "Oh, I like you, but I want you to be the one in control," or something like that. And it seems like every single time that happens, even when the girl is like I had this long distance girlfriend, and we never actually met in person, but she had these broad shoulders, and she, flat hair, and just like looked exactly like the type of woman that would be dominant, but she wasn't. And but then I've also met, like, on Reddit, there was this girl that I met on there, who she was super into BDSM, and she was super dominant, and she liked to wear those masks, like those robber masks and stuff, for anonymity. I used to be into that too. And she really was looking for a small submissive man, and I was like, holy shit, I hit the jackpot here. And I talked to her, and she was so into me, and I was like the perfect guy to her. And she lived in Oakland, which is like an hour away. And I went down there and I visited her and I spent the night, and I was disappointed to find that she was only like, I don't know, that much taller than me. But, you know, other than that, she had the kind of body on a woman that I used to really like really like wide hips, you know, thick, curvaceous type of girl. She was a white girl. And, but like I was going through, and I still am going through this libido, this low libido issue. And I was also getting over an addiction at that time. And she was really nice. She gave me a bunch of free stuff. I'm not going to say exactly what she gave me for legal reasons, but like we had fun. But I was not able to satisfy her because I wasn't able to get excited enough. And this is why I don't settle for someone who doesn't meet those physical needs. Like I feel like I can like be okay with being a switch, you know, switching back and forth between submissive and dominant if I meet a really tall woman and she insists on that. But I can't settle for someone who is dominant but like doesn't fit the physical aspect because it just doesn't work for me, you know?
I do, but I also feel like, in a strange way, I feel like you're being socially, I guess socially oppressed. I don't even know if that's the appropriate term, but you're being socially oppressed by the same projections that you place on women and the reverse. So think of it this way, you were saying that you have to be attracted to who you're with, and that's across the board. That's the same for everyone, right? We all have our preferences and we have a right to our preferences, and we shouldn't be dating people or engaging with people that we know we're not attracted to, because not only is it disingenuous, but it's a negative to the purpose of getting acquainted with someone and
So
forming
waste of time and
relationships.
money.
Yeah, and it's antisocial. And frankly, it's not about whether or not someone matches whatever my physical metrics are of desire. The question is how does she treat me? And if she's not treating me right, I don't care how tall she is. She could be 6'8". If she's not treating me right, she could slap me, she could flip me out, burn me over. If she's not treating me like a human being, then it doesn't matter. And the thing is that, I mean, I'm not trying to tell you like, oh, you need to lower your standards. I'm saying that you need to actually look at, like, if you don't want people to treat you a certain way, you can't project on them a different type of treatment and expect different results. And so, like, if I'm going to go out there and say I will only date women that are over 5'8", and then women decide to go, well, guess what? I don't want to date a transgender, and I certainly don't want to date one that's 5'4", and I go, oh my gosh, and there's women that are 5'3", there's women that are 5'5", there's women that are 5 foot nothing. And the point is the question isn't like what they look like, it's how they treat you. And I mean, that's what I think is most important. It is important to be attracted to people, but I think it's even more important as to how they're treating people. And then the other thing, you talked about sympathy with women. That was another subject we discussed previously, about, like, you basically said that when it comes to dating, they don't really understand what it's like. They don't really need sympathy in dating, and I'm gonna have to disagree. I would say that everybody deserves sympathy within the right context, and so I don't know. I guess, like, if we're gonna go out and project all of these qualifiers on women, if we're woman attracted and we're putting out all these qualifiers, then don't you think it's more than reasonable for them to disqualify us by their own respective qualifiers?
Yeah, I don't get mad at women for liking tall guys. It's very disappointing though, because I thought that, you know, because I went through what I went through and started liking the opposite of what was conventional, that of course they would, you know, there would be at least, you know, maybe 3% of them that would go through the same thing, especially specifically tall women, because just like me being the opposite of what is considered normal and natural for a male, if a woman is the opposite of what's considered normal and natural for a female, my thought pattern was that they are also going to go through some kind of adaptation, transformation, and start liking the opposite. But the reality is that like it takes a lot of suffering to reach that point, and a lot of just feeling completely worthless and insecure and inferior. And when someone never like goes through that to such a degree, they never reach that point. So they continue on the path that I was on, which is trying to gym max, trying to wear lifts and do all these things to try and maximize my height and like make up for being short. And it seems like I just got pushed too far and it pushed me to this point. And it seems like most tall women are like that as well. Like they try to hunch over and they put their legs out sideways when they're taking pictures so they can look shorter. They bend down. Every time I've taken a picture with a tall woman, I wished that they would just stand up straight. And like I'm always too uncomfortable to ask them to stand up straight because they might get weirded out and not want to take the picture. But at a certain point, like I want them to see me getting towered over in this photograph, and they're not doing it. Um, but it's like the reason they never reach that point is because they always have options, and like so they're not experiencing that same level of being dejected by society and by men. Like it really, you got to be basically deformed as a woman to be treated the same way as like most short guys are, especially if you're not attractive.
And here's the thing, I'm gonna have to politely disagree, but here's why. So, um, for one thing, when and this is just this is I can kind of relate this to gender and how people understand things in that way, but I don't want to like go into rabbit hole about gender identity too much. But to your point, when it comes to like we could say uh, somebody who's not of the same sex, they tend to view the problems of the other or the opposite sex, as people use that terminology, and rationalize it through the most extreme of the other end. So when you think of like when you'll hear women online say this sometimes of like, oh, it's not that hard for guys to get a date or whatever, but like a lot of times they're seeing it through the lens of a guy who they would want to go on a date with, right? They see it, they
Yeah,
project
the
it through the
guy who
lens.
has all the options.
Yeah, a guy who can go cheat with your best friend and sleep with your mom and also your boss and all that. Like they see it through that lens, but they also don't realize that it's not always like the extreme. And I think a lot of men do the same thing where they're like, oh, everything is just so easy. It would just be like this really attractive woman, who's got it all going on and she's really smart and she's really, she's got all these resources and all these orbiters, all these men who would just love to be with her. And not every woman's experience is like that. Lived experience is not a monolith. And also, I think there's a lot of crossover that sometimes you don't see. I know personally one of the reasons that, like, my shift, what kind of caused my personal shift from going from like what would be considered a person that was pretty sexless and didn't date people at all and kind of antisocial was that I made a lot of women friends. I have a lot of friends that happen to be women, and hearing their experiences, and it's not all gumdrops and roses for everybody. And to your other point about like sympathy, I think, and this is coming from somebody who I consider myself pretty pansexual, pretty open to all genders and dating. I think a narcissistic man and a narcissistic woman are a lot closer to each other on the spectrum of toxicity than your average woman or your average empath woman and your average empath man who have some level of empathy for another person. I think that it's not so much at scale in the aggregate of like a gender scale as it is of like a desirability scale. So if you're a desirable person, yeah, you do get a lot of options. But I'm saying it's the same. A man who is 6'4" and attractive and handsome and blue eyes or whatever, right? He's not going to be able to relate to our experience as much as a woman who maybe doesn't fit all the stereotypical qualifiers. You might be surprised. A woman who has been marginalized, or a woman who has faced some forms of hardship in her life, or maybe she didn't grow up wealthy, maybe she grew up poor, she might be able to relate to us when it comes to social politics a lot more than you think, than that tall, handsome guy that was born with a silver spoon. You know, tall, blue eyes, blonde hair, whatever. Every girl wants him. He's probably not going to be able to relate to you that much.
Yeah. Well, you're familiar with the concept of hypergamy, right?
Yes.
So that's where this whole thing comes from, and there are a couple examples that I thought of. Um, One of them was related to the empath term you brought up. That's all, that what I'll talk about second. But there's one example, Shelby. Shelby exists and makes things. I just made a video on her crash out. She victim blamed all of men's problems on, like, every lonely man. It's all his fault that he's lonely, and that he makes women feel unsafe, and that that's the reason they don't want him. And then she went on to hypocritically say that how can you expect a woman to want you when you're 5'7" and balding and stuff like that. So she tried to make it about personality, and then made it about how the guy physically looks, talking about things that he can't change about himself, and then showed the actual, in real time, the aspect of the halo effect, which has been proven that women like associate positive personality traits more towards people that they find more attractive, and that was clearly demonstrated there. And the fact is that Shelby is probably like a below average attractiveness woman. She's not fat, but she's not pretty. She's not sexually attractive, at least to most men. Yet she's got dozens and dozens and dozens of guys in her DMs that watch her, that give her money, that try to get to know her, that try to, like, because she's always complaining about being lonely and not being able to find a man. Yet she's got all of these dozens of options to choose from, which men, if a man were to do the same thing as her, first of all, they'd never grow their YouTube account as fast, because people want to watch a woman that's going, like, people would rather watch a doomer woman than a doomer man, just because it's really uncommon. But also, they see that and they think, oh, this is my opportunity to find a girlfriend, because if she can't find a man, well, I'm here. And there are so many men who think that way, and they fill her inbox and they fill her comments, and she rejects them all. She's rejecting men left, right, and center. And then she goes on and makes a video about how these men that she's rejecting they are like entitled, they feel entitled, and they expect her to like them back. And it just really goes to show that these women that are complaining about this, that aren't attractive, they have way, way, way more options than we do as men, but
But
they
why? But
reject
why?
them
Why do they have more
because
options? Why?
because because of hypergamy. Because men, because these women, their ego has been built up by the fact that when they're on social media, they get all of these DMs and they get all of this attention. And, there might be an attractive guy in their past who's like maybe gone to bed with them because he didn't have anybody else and he was bored, and that made her think that, oh, I'm a high value woman now. Um, and I've had many female friends. You mentioned that. I've probably had more female friends than male friends. Um, and yeah, I've rejected a few women too, but not to the degree of what I saw with Shelby. She really had a lot of men that were interested in her, and she, instead of taking that as, oh, I'm not so bad after all, she took it as, oh, I hate all these men because they're harassing me. And guys just can't relate to that. Most guys would love to have women harassing them.
Well, okay. So, yeah, I agree with the last part, because a lot of men have no standards. That's the issue. The issue, here's the thing. I'm responsible for how I teach people to treat me, right? Women can treat me however they want to. This is just my rule of thumb, my personal MO. You can be any gender. if you decide to mistreat me, if you decide to put me down, if you decide to make fun of me, or if you decide to stand me up for a date, you decide to show up, the whole continuum of treatment, that's fine. You can do that. You're free to do whatever. Women are free to treat you however they want to, but you are also free to decide what the consequences are of that treatment. So if somebody's going to say, oh, well, men are harassing me and I'm experiencing like I have too many options, all that. Yeah, it's probably true that your average woman, when it comes to the online dating apps, they get a lot. And I mean, they do get a lot more of interest. The volume is not the same. But again, we don't have to invalidate someone else's trauma or someone else's experience just to make ours valid, and to say that just because, say, my sister probably on online dating probably receives 5 times the amount of DMs that I receive, right, from men than I would from women, it doesn't make it such that everything is easier for her because of that. It's the metric here, the issue is that many men have low standards or no standards. And so again, this circles right back to what I said is the origin is the patriarchy. A lot of men do not understand that when you vet people, you don't just vet them based on how they look or vet them on their bra size or how tall they are. You're supposed to vet them on how they treat you. And if you allow people into your life that mistreat you, regardless of their gender, that's on you. So I'm not saying that women have the same experience as men on average. No, they absolutely don't, and I don't think they think that they do. I just think that in general, it's on us to control how we allow people to treat us. And so if you allow, say, a 5'10" woman into your life or a 5'11" woman into your life who maybe doesn't treat you that well, but hey, guess what? She fits all the qualifiers and she looks really good. And hey, she'll beat me up a little bit. She's dominant. In the end, if she goes and cheats on you with your friend or whatever, yeah, like you can be mad about it, but you can't be mad about the process because at the end of the day, you chose someone based on that. And I'm not saying that it's all about like just personality. I do believe people should have standards, but again, how you allow people to treat you should be the primary metric with who gets to be in your life, who gets to be your friend, who gets to be your partner, all of that. And so if men did that more, maybe men would get better treatment. But then again, that goes back to the patriarchy. If you're choosing people based on their height or based on their weight or based on their looks, and then you're mad because you're disqualified by that same metric, because that's what happens in the aggregate is, it's the whole, like the proverb, you get judged by the same meter that you measure people by, and it sucks, but that's just how things work. And so I think for anything, for what it's worth, if we could somehow maybe dismantle the patriarchy by maybe having standards, maybe vetting women based on how they treat us, and maybe actually like thinking about like, well, hey, yeah, I do like to be kinky with people in this way. I do like to be submissive. I do like these things, but I don't want to have it with a woman who happens to be 6 foot, who also is disrespectful to me or makes fun of me behind my back or is embarrassed to be seen with me in public and doesn't want me to meet her dad. You get to decide all of those things. That's all I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Well, personally, I don't think any like change to patriarchy, like I don't think any broad societal systemic change is going to change how women think on an individual level. Like I care about how I'm treated as far as like this one time, this 6'1" girl that I dated a little bit. I won't tell the full story. I'll save that for a video, but she like demeaned me because she wanted me to get just give up on my business and get a regular job. And I told her I'd rather die. And this was over text, and we got into this debate about people's right to die and stuff like that. And she like said like, oh, do I need to call a crisis center? And I actually was taken away in the middle of the night one time back in 2020 with against my will. My right to own a firearm was revoked for 5 years, and it was a traumatic experience. And I believe that should be illegal. Like you shouldn't be able to do that to somebody. So I got